Well, one button rotation just dropped and we can finally see how much damage it actually does. And well, it does way too much damage. You can see here Tettles blasting a plus 17, one of the hardest dungeons you can actually play, and being top DPS on it by pressing one button. People are already starting to talk about this and what the consequences on the game are gonna be. Are they good? Is this a bad thing? Is it exactly what should be happening? Let's talk about it. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Go to my Ko-Fi if you want to support my content, and go to check Tettles' YouTube. He's pretty cool, and well, he was the one testing this on a plus 17, which is pretty impressive. So first of all, what does the auto button rotation actually does? It essentially just does the damage rotation you would usually use in every spec, and it changes depending on it. That being said, it doesn't use cooldowns like defensive cooldowns and offensive cooldowns. You're gonna see that here Tettles actually uses the offensive cooldown to do more damage in the middle of the run, right there. And he continuously does this every time this goes off cooldown. This is important to note because just because you're doing your auto button rotation doesn't mean that you will actually be able to do the damage that he's doing. You will have to consider when to use your cooldowns to get an advantage of the entirety of the feature. That being said, WoW already has a list on the amount of damage you actually lose using this feature. You will indeed lose a little bit of damage because the global cooldown off of different abilities will be slower than if you were normally pressing it. And you can see the amount of damage you actually lose. Particularly from Boomkin, Balance Druid, which was what Tettles was using, is 16% less damage. Which sounds like a lot. But considering the total damage at the end, I guess it wasn't. By them just pressing this one button and using their cooldowns in a correct manner, they're able to top DPS compared to other people that are actually trying their best to do damage. But why does this happen? How is it possible if you have a literal disadvantage? Well, this happens because Tettles is a good player. He knows when to use defenses, when to move, when not to move, when to use cooldowns to do more damage to be able to top the meters. Even if he doesn't pay that much attention, even if he loses a little bit of damage, that's 16%, he's still able to do very, very well on the dungeon compared to other players who might actually not be the best. Now, this is a plus 17, so these players that he's playing with are very, very good, but we also have to consider that by just using one button, you can actually concentrate on the important things, like using your cooldowns in the correct manner, like moving away from an enemy and not getting hit, like using defenses, like using interrupts. You can just concentrate on positioning yourself in the correct manner to do more damage and make a successful run while the game doing the damage for you. Now, in other ways, that's what the point of this entire feature is. The players who don't know their rotation very well, or they want to focus on learning the mechanics of the fights, they can just do that. Focus on doing the interrupts, doing the defensives, not getting hit by stuff. And the game does the rest, making players be able to learn one thing at a time. And the reality is that most people are not gonna be able to get to even the 16% less damage that you would be able to do in a perfect scenario. Most players are gonna fuck up. They are gonna make mistakes in their rotation, in their gameplay, and them getting to a minus 16% of their perfect play is not something very realistic. In reality, 16% of perfect play is an insane number. Just think about it, guys. Do you think you are capable of doing 60% less damage than the perfect damage you could do in a dungeon? Probably not, and most people will definitely not be there. They probably will be like, I don't know, 60% less, maybe even more. And this is the type of players that you will see most of the time, the most amount of players that we are. So this feature kind of cutting all of those people and saying, hey, if you press one button, you get way above what you would usually be able to accomplish is insane. You can actually tell this in Guild Wars 2, for example, where we have a very similar system than what WoW has when we have low intensity builds. Builds where you only have to press one button to do a lot of damage. The main builds will do around 45k damage, as you can see here. Let's talk particularly about Power Deadeye here. Does 45k damage at the maximum. But there's a second version of this build that instead of using the weapons that build particularly says, uses pistol, letting you press one button and doing around 28k DPS. This is actually now a bit bigger. It's like 30 plus k DPS. So by just pressing one button, you can do like 80% of what the damage would be normally. I don't actually know if that's the percentage, but you can see 30k to 45k. That's a very, very close number. And even though there is a big difference, if you go and check DPSs of different players in different scenarios, you can see that their damage is not even close to that 30k. Even if they're trying their best, sometimes even with a good build, people literally pressing one button will do more damage than the entirety of the 50-man squad. And this is exactly what's gonna end up happening in World of Warcraft. By people using this auto-attack rotation, they're gonna be doing significantly more damage than most people that don't use it, because most people don't know how to do damage. Probably, most likely, a normal gamer who plays this game, even if he thinks that he's doing things correctly, if they were just to press this one button rotation, they would do more damage than themselves trying their best doing normal buttons. And even though that sounds good, I think there's a little bit of a problem, because what's the point in actually trying if you can just press this one button and do most of the damage you would usually do? I think this post here says it very clearly. I legit played all night last night with this, and honestly my DPS was about the same as normal. And yes, you still need to press your own interrupts and cooldowns. I don't know how I feel about spamming one button for 4 hours, but the option also makes me feel a way about pressing buttons the regular way, when I could just spam the one button and not worry about it, particularly on ults. If you can do 80% of the damage by just putting 5% of the work, why would you try the other way? Why would you try really hard to get 81% damage instead of 80 by putting 90% of the work? That deal is not a good deal. For this to actually work out, we need to make the DPS loss on this single button assistant way, way worse. So even when you're actually trying your best and a normal regular player is trying their best, they still lose a little bit of damage compared to actually trying. There should never be a question of, oh, do I try and do the same amount of damage or even less, or do I press the one button? No, it should be you press the one button when you don't really care about doing that much damage, you're in a +1 or you're in an open world and you don't really care about it, and you actually try when you do want to do a big amount of damage. There needs to be a significant difference. There we go. Otherwise, this feature does not make any sense. I mean, according to Wowhead, Balanced Druid is only -16% lost on Moonkin, on the one single button assistant. Augmentation Evoker is 8%, arguably way better. Destruction Warlock is a -10. You could be doing so much more damage on these classes instead. And most of them, -20, -25, are probably okay to play and get an insane amount of damage regardless. I think there's a few ways you can actually fix this. You can make it so, well, overall, the feature is less useful. It just does less damage. You can maybe make it so it's limited in certain environments. Maybe if you do a +10, you can't use this feature anymore, so the competitive aspect doesn't get destroyed. But personally, I just think it should be less strong. Personally, I think that's the way it should work. People can still use it, but you don't have this conflict of interest in your mind of, do I actually try, or do I just take a step back and just deal with very specific mechanics, which arguably are not the most fun anyways. The most fun part, for me at least, playing WoW, is doing the rotation, is seeing the number go up because I'm trying my best. Interrupts, stuns, all this other stuff, personally, I really don't like it. But, hey, that's definitely just me, and I'm kind of curious to see what you think about this. Do you think this should be nerfed? Do you think it's working correctly? I'm very curious to see what Blizzard is going to say about this, and it's a very, very interesting topic for the MMORPG genre, because I think most games will end up in a place like this. So we definitely need to pay a lot of attention. So wherever WoW goes, it's to a good place. So if other MMORPGs copy it, they use this system, not a, oh, you autoplay everything and you don't even have to do anything in the game to play it, to get your reward. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Go to my Ko-Fi if you want to support my content. Go to my Twitch to watch me live every morning. See you guys around. Love you all. Ciao, ciao.